Hey, what's up? This is Kevin from Peacock Inside Tech, and the Motorolaone Zoom is a budget phone with a flagship camera setup. So let's see how good these cameras are and how good the phone is. Let's start with some specs. The Motorolaone Zoom comes with a 25 megapixel selfie camera and a quad camera setup on the back, and it consists of a 48 megapixel primary sensor with a f1.7 aperture and OIS, an 8 megapixel telephoto lens with a f2.4 aperture that provides a 3x optical zoom and OIS, a 16 megapixel ultra wide lens with a f2.2 aperture, and a 117 degree field of view. It also comes with a 5 megapixel sensor that's just there for measuring depth. In daylight, the cameras perform great. The selfie camera was, to my surprise, also pretty good. It processes the images pretty well, and they don't come out too sharp, showing all the imperfections in your face, but it's still sharp enough to create a pleasing shot. It does struggle a bit with dynamic range though, and it tends to blow out a lot of the highlights. Shots from the primary lens are generally good and packed full of detail. Thanks to that 48 megapixel sensor, I could get some really high quality pics from this sensor. The camera actually uses the 48 megapixel sensor to gather a lot of information and then uses that information to create a sharp and color it accurate image that comes out to be 12 megapixels. Dynamic range in this sensor is also pretty good. I shot some shots in some pretty tricky situations like against the sunlight, and it did a pretty good job with the highlights and also not totally crushing the shadows. The 8 megapixel telephoto lens is also really good. The images come out looking sharp, just like from the primary lens, but the colors can look a little washed out in comparison. I really liked that it's a 3x optical zoom. This makes a lot more sense to me than something like a 2x zoom. I feel like this is a lot more useful. The 16 megapixel ultra wide lens does a good job at not distorting images, and it also does a good job with color. Dynamic range is also decent, keeping all areas of the photo correctly exposed most of the time. It does seem to capture a lot less detail compared to the other lenses, but that's only when you zoom in to look a little bit closer. You can also shoot portrait shots to put your subject more in focus and blur out the background. It uses the primary lens for portraits, so it can take really detailed shots. The edge detection is good as well thanks to the 5 megapixel depth sensor. It does a good job detecting where to start the blur effect. The only thing that needs improvement in the portrait mode is the dynamic range. A lot of the shots that I took, the sky or anything that was brighter, was normally blown out. The zoom also comes with other cool features like spot color, where you can highlight a certain color. It also has the feature cut out, where you can cut out your subject from a picture and paste it onto a different background. In low light situations, the story looks a little bit different. The selfie camera really struggles with noise and color temperature, but surprisingly, with the screen flash, you can get a pretty good selfie in dark environments. The primary lens has a night vision mode to help in low light conditions, and it's actually pretty good. With this mode off, images are pretty dark and noisy, but when it's on, it can really brighten up the photo, and not just brighten it, but also reduce noise and keep the colors pretty accurate. It is nice to have such a good night mode on a phone at this price. But the night vision mode only works on the 48 megapixel primary lens. The telephoto and the ultra wide really struggle in low light. Video on the Zoom is decent as well. You can shoot in full HD on the selfie camera, and it also has a slow motion feature, which Apple likes to call slowfies, like on the iPhone 11. Video on the main lens is also really good. You can shoot up to 4K at 30 frames per second, 1080p at 60 frames per second, also slow-mo at 1080p at 120 frames per second. The stabilization is pretty good too. It can get a little jittery at times, but overall it's pretty good. So the cameras can definitely keep up with phones that cost a lot more, just like the Pixel 3a, which I would say is this phone's direct competitor due to the price. The only thing that wasn't so great on the Zoom was that sometimes the camera could take up to 3 seconds just to capture a shot, and this was really frustrating because you most likely will miss your shot that you're trying to get within 3 seconds. I mean, the shutter speed needs to be quick so you can get the shot that you're looking for. I assume this has something to do with the weaker processor trying to process 48 megapixel images, but I could be wrong, and maybe they can improve it with a software update. But is the Moto Zoom a decent phone as well? It has a metal and glass construction, and the backside is this frosted matte glass, and it feels really good in the hand. The highlight to me though of this design is this glowing M logo. I think it looks awesome, and it's a real eye-catcher in combination with this purple color. This color is an Amazon exclusive, by the way, and you can only get it on Amazon. The Zoom comes with a large battery as well at 4,000 milliamps, and you will definitely need that size battery when you're out snapping pictures all day with those 4 cameras. It also has a nice 6.4 Full HD Plus AMOLED display with a small raindrop notch at the top to house the selfie camera. It's not the brightest display out there, but overall, for this price, it's a pretty good display. The rest of the specs are pretty mid-range though, like the more energy-saving Snapdragon 675 processor, but since Moto keeps their Android skin light and close to the stock Android, the experience wasn't as bad as I initially thought. You will definitely notice that it's a mid-range processor, but for normal tasks, it's more than enough processing power. The Zoom comes with 4 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of internal storage, and that storage is expandable via SD card slot. It's also equipped with the in-screen fingerprint sensor, but it's easily the worst thing about this phone. In my experience, it's really slow, and I often had to scan my finger more than once just to get in my phone. Maybe Motorola can fix this with a software update, but for this price, at around 350 euros currently online, I can't complain too much. The Zoom even has a headphone jack for those people that don't want to invest in Bluetooth headphones. The Moto Actions are here too, and they're pretty practical. I always use the screwdriver twist gesture just to start the camera, or the chop gesture to turn on the flashlight. The Zoom comes with Android 9 out of the box. I don't know if it'll be updated to Android 10, but it would have been nice to have Android 10 out of the box. So if you're looking for a phone that won't break the bank and has a focus on mobile photography, the Motorola Zoom is probably the phone for you. I mean, it's really flexible with those 4 cameras, and it has good image quality. So thanks for watching my video. Please subscribe to the channel if you liked it. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter for more content. So see you in the next video.